The galactic security station Omega-7 drifted silently through the void, its massive bulk casting shadows across 3 moons. Within its reinforced walls lay the most dangerous criminals in known space, each locked away in cells designed to contain their specific abilities. But there was one cell that even the guards feared to approach, one prisoner that had become legend among the station's crew. Deep in the station's core, behind walls of quantum-locked steel and energy barriers that could stop a battleship, something paced in the darkness. The cell designation read X9 Feral in glowing red letters, and beneath it a warning that made seasoned guards' blood run cold. Approach only in full combat armor, lethal force authorized. Commander HFY of the Valorian. Empire adjusted his scaled hide as he walked the upper observation deck, his 4 eyes scanning the security feeds. As the station's commanding officer, he took pride in maintaining order among the galaxy's most dangerous beings. Pirates, war criminals, rogue AI cores, reality manipulators, all subdued and contained. All except one. "Sir," came the nervous voice of Lieutenant Koltar, a young Valorian fresh from the academy. "The feeding time for Cell X9 is approaching. The automated systems are malfunctioning again." HFY's mandibles clicked in annoyance. This was the 3rd feeding system to fail this month. The prisoner below had a way of breaking things, even through the strongest containment fields. "Send a message to the Terran embassy. Tell them their creature needs attending to." The young lieutenant's scales rippled with confusion. "Sir, the Terrans have declined all previous requests. They say the prisoner is no longer their responsibility." "Of course they do," HFY muttered, his tail lashing behind him. The humans had been remarkably unhelpful since delivering their cargo 11 centuries ago. They'd handed over the creature with minimal documentation, only stating that it was too dangerous for human space, and that it should never be released under any circumstances. Down in the depths of the station, in a cell that hadn't seen natural light for over a millennium, something stirred. The creature was massive, easily 3 times the size of any human, covered in thick matted fur that had once been silver but now appeared almost black in the eternal twilight of its prison. Its eyes, when they opened, burned with an intelligence that belied its savage reputation. The creature the guards called the Feral had been known by another name once. Fenric had been his designation, though the memories of when he had a pack, when he had purpose, felt like distant dreams now. He had been a warrior once, a protector of his people, before the humans had come with their lies and their chains. The station's crew told stories about him in hushed whispers during shift changes. They said he had single-handedly destroyed 3 Valorian battlecruisers before his capture. They said his howl could shatter reinforced glass from 50 meters away. They said he could tear through battle armor with his bare claws. Most of the stories were exaggerated, but not by much. What they didn't know was that Fenric remembered everything. Every day of his imprisonment, every failed escape attempt, every moment of rage and despair. The humans had taken him from his homeworld during what they called a pacification mission, claiming his people were too violent to exist freely in the galaxy. His pack had fought bravely, but human technology and tactics had overwhelmed them. The irony wasn't lost on him that humans of all species had deemed his people too violent. Fenric's enhanced hearing picked up the conversation from the command deck far above. Another feeding malfunction, another excuse for the Valorians to avoid entering his cell. He had learned their language centuries ago, along with a dozen others. Intelligence was something his captors consistently underestimated. As if summoned by his thoughts, the heavy blast doors at the end of the corridor hissed open. Fenric's ears perked up, expecting the usual automated feeding drone. Instead, he heard something different. Footsteps. Organic footsteps with a rhythm he hadn't heard in... Could it be centuries? A figure appeared in the dim corridor lighting, and Fenric's eyes widened in recognition and fury. A human. Not just any human, but one wearing the blue and silver uniform of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. The man was middle-aged, with graying hair and tired eyes that held no fear as they met Fenric's burning gaze. "Hello, Fenric," the human said quietly, his voice carrying clearly through the energy barrier. "My name is Ambassador Marcus Chen. I apologize for the long delay in coming to see you." Fenric's lips pulled back in a snarl, revealing teeth that could crush steel. "A human comes to gloat?" His voice was rough from centuries of disuse, each word carefully formed despite the growl that accompanied it. "No," Chen replied. settling onto a simple metal chair he'd brought with him. I came to talk. And perhaps to offer you something that has been denied for far too long. The only thing I want from humans is their deaths, Fenric rumbled. But something in the ambassador's manner gave him pause. This human was different from his captors. There was no fear, but also no arrogance. No cruelty, but also no pity. I understand your anger, Chen said. What was done to you and your people was wrong. The decision to imprison you here was made by humans who believed they were protecting the galaxy. But they were wrong, too. Fenric's claws scraped against the metal floor as he moved closer to the energy barrier. Pretty words. From a species of liars. You're not wrong to feel that way, Chen admitted. But I'm here because some of us have learned from our mistakes. The galaxy has changed in the past 11 centuries, Fenric. The human government that imprisoned you no longer exists. New leaders, new policies, new understanding. The wolf-like alien studied the human carefully. In all his years of imprisonment, no one had ever spoken to him as anything other than a dangerous animal to be contained. What do you want? Chen leaned forward slightly. I want to offer you a choice that should have been given to you long ago. But first you need to hear about what's happened to the galaxy while you've been locked away, about threats that make your people's warrior culture look peaceful by comparison. Fenric's ears twitched with interest despite himself. For the first time in centuries, someone was offering him something other than empty containment. Speak, he growled. Ambassador Chen activated a small holographic projector, and images filled the space between them. Fenric's eyes tracked the display with predatory focus as star maps, battle footage, and alien faces flickered through the air. 300 years ago, Chen began, first contact was made with something we call the Devourers. They're not from our galaxy, Fenric. They're from somewhere else entirely, and they have one purpose, to consume all organic life. The images showed massive, insectoid creatures with chitinous armor and mandibles that could snap a starship in half. Entire worlds stripped bare, their surfaces scarred and lifeless. Fenric had seen violence before, had participated in his share of battles, but this was something different. This was systematic extinction. They don't negotiate, Chen continued. They don't take prisoners. They don't even seem to understand the concept of surrender. They arrive at a world, strip it of all biological matter, and move on. In 3 centuries, they've consumed 47 inhabited systems. Fenric's claws extended unconsciously as he studied the battle footage. He watched Valorian fleets, those same ships that had once hunted his people, being torn apart by creatures that seemed to feel no fear, no pain, no hesitation. How many are dead? Conservative estimates put it at 200 billion sentient beings, Chen said quietly. And that's just in our galaxy. We've detected similar consumption patterns in 3 neighboring galaxies. The wolf warrior's mind raced. His people had been called savage, but they fought for territory, for resources, for honor. They had never sought to erase entire species from existence. What have the civilized races done to stop them? Chen's expression darkened. Everything we could think of. The Galactic Council formed the largest military alliance in recorded history. Humans, Valorians, Zelkari, even the war-loving Mandorians, species that had been enemies for millennia, suddenly found themselves fighting side by side. More images flowed past. Massive space battles, weapons that could crack moons, shields that could protect entire star systems. And through it all, the Devourers kept coming, kept consuming, kept advancing. The problem, Chen explained, is that they adapt faster than we can innovate. Every weapon we develop, they counter within months. Every strategy we employ, they learn and overcome. Our best military minds estimate we have perhaps 50 years before they reach the galactic core worlds. Fenric was silent for a long moment, processing what he'd been told. Finally, he spoke. Why tell me this? What can one imprisoned warrior do against such a threat? Chen deactivated the hologram and met Fenric's burning gaze directly. Because traditional warfare isn't working. Because sometimes you need someone who thinks differently, who fights differently. Because sometimes you need a predator to catch a predator. You wanna release me? Fenric's voice carried a mixture of disbelief and dark amusement. After 11 centuries, you want to set the monster free? I want to give you the choice your people should have had from the beginning, Chen corrected. The choice to fight for something greater than yourself. The choice to be the warrior you were meant to be. The ambassador reached into his coat and withdrew a data pad, placing it where Fenric could see it through the energy barrier. This contains everything we know about devourer tactics, physiology, technology. It also contains something else. The location of 17 other members of your species. Fenric's entire body went rigid. Impossible. My pack. My people. They were all scattered, Chen finished, hidden away in various facilities across the galaxy. The humans of that era were thorough in their fear, but they weren't executioners. Your people live, Fenric, but they've been imprisoned just as you have been. The wolf warrior's breathing became heavy, his chest rising and falling as emotions he'd buried for centuries began to surface. His pack brothers, his sisters in arms, the young ones who had barely learned to hunt, they lived? There's more, Chen continued. 3 months ago, a devourer scout fleet made contact with our outer defense grid. Among the wreckage we recovered, we found something interesting. He activated another hologram, this one showing biological samples and genetic analyses. They've been consuming worlds inhabited by species similar to yours. Wolf-like humanoids, pack hunters, highly aggressive and territorial. Fenric studied the data with growing understanding. They see my people as a threat. The only threats they've actively sought out and eliminated, Chen confirmed. Every other species they encounter is treated as simple biomass to be consumed. But when they find wolves like your people, they don't just kill them, they hunt them down with focused determination. The implications hit Fenric like a physical blow. His people weren't just scattered prisoners, they were a targeted species. The devourers had identified them as something to be specifically eliminated. Which brings me to my proposal, Chen said. The Galactic Council has authorized me to offer you and your people full pardons and citizenship in any system you choose. Your equipment and weapons have been maintained and upgraded with our best technology. Your homeworld has been restored and is waiting for you. Fenric's eyes narrowed. In exchange for? Help us fight them. Not as soldiers in our armies, but as hunters operating behind enemy lines. Your people understand pack tactics, stealth warfare, survival in hostile environments. You think like predators, and that's something our civilized military minds struggle with. The wolf warrior began to pace again, but this time it wasn't the restless movement of a caged animal. It was the focused energy of a hunter considering his prey. You would trust us. With such freedom. After so long? I'll be honest with you, Fenric. There are those on the council who think this is madness, who believe your people are too dangerous to release regardless of the threat we face. But I've studied the records of your capture, the reports from your homeworld. Your people weren't mindless savages. You were protectors. You fought to defend your territory, your young, your way of life. Chen stood and placed his hand against the energy barrier. The galaxy needs protectors now, Fenric. Not politicians, not diplomats, not even soldiers following orders. It needs hunters who can think like the enemy, who can adapt and survive and strike from the shadows. Fenric approached the barrier until he was close enough to see his reflection in Chen's eyes. And if we refuse? If we choose to take our freedom and disappear into the void, then you're free to do so, Chen said simply. No tracking devices, no monitoring, no conditions. You've paid a price no being should ever have to pay. Whatever you choose, you've earned the right to make that choice. For the first time in over a millennium, Fenric felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. Not just for freedom, but for purpose, for the chance to be what he had always been, a protector of his people and a hunter of those who threatened them. How long? He asked. Do I have to decide? The transport ship arrives tomorrow, Chen replied. Your packmates are being given the same choice. Whatever you decide together. Fenric nodded slowly, his mind already racing with possibilities. Leave the data pad. I have much to consider. As Chen prepared to leave, Fenric called out one final question. Ambassador, and why you? Why are you the one making this offer? Chen paused at the blast doors and looked back. Because someone needs to acknowledge what was done to your people was wrong. And because my grandmother was stationed on your homeworld during the pacification mission, she spent her final years trying to get the council to reconsider your imprisonment. She died believing she had failed. She didn't fail, Fenric said quietly. She just planted seeds that took time to grow. As the blast doors sealed shut, Fenric was alone again with his thoughts. But for the first time in 11 centuries, he wasn't truly alone. Somewhere in the galaxy his pack waited, and beyond them, an enemy that had marked his people for extinction. The hunt was about to begin. The transport ship Redemption materialized in the empty space near Station Omega-7, like a metal leviathan emerging from the depths. Its hull bore the diplomatic markings of the Terran embassy, but its size and obvious military modifications told a different story. This wasn't just a passenger vessel. It was a mobile command center designed for deep space operations. Fenric stood in his cell, no longer pacing. He had spent the night studying every piece of data Chen had provided, memorizing devourer attack patterns, biological weaknesses, ship configurations. His mind, sharpened by centuries of enforced solitude, absorbed the information like a blade absorbing steel. The enemy was dangerous, but they were still just predators, and Fenric knew how to hunt predators. The blast doors opened again, but this time it wasn't just Ambassador Chen who entered. 3 figures followed him. A Valorian security chief whose scales bore the scars of many battles. A human female in military dress uniform with cybernetic implants gleaming at her temples, and something that made Fenric's breath catch in his throat. Another wolf. The figure was smaller than Fenric, leaner, with fur that had maintained its silver color despite long imprisonment. Female by the scent that barely reached him through the energy barrier. Her yellow eyes met his with a mixture of recognition and wariness. "Fenric of the Northern Territory," she said, her voice carrying the formal cadence of old pack protocols. "I am Lyra of the Eastern Reaches. I bring word from the scattered." Chen gestured to his companions. "General Martinez oversees the military aspects of this operation. Commander HFY you've already met, though under different circumstances, and Lyra here has been visiting the other facilities, gathering consensus from your people." Fenric's attention remained fixed on Lyra. "How many live?" 17 confirmed, she replied. 3 others died in containment over the centuries. We are all that remains of the 47 packs that once roamed our homeworld. The weight of that statement settled over Fenric like a physical force. 47 packs reduced to 17 individuals. Hundreds of thousands of his people reduced to a number that could fit in a single room. "What have the others chosen?" he asked. Lyra's expression was carefully neutral. 13 have chosen to answer the hunt call. 3 have chosen freedom and exile. 1 remains undecided, waiting for your choice. General Martinez stepped forward, her cybernetic eye focusing on Fenric with mechanical precision. "Mr. Fenric, I won't insult your intelligence with false promises. What we're asking you to do is probably a suicide mission. The Devourers have wiped out civilizations that had millions of years to prepare. Your people would be operating alone behind enemy lines with minimal support. And yet," Commander HFY added, his mandibles clicking nervously, "traditional warfare has proven inadequate. Perhaps it is time to try." Unconventional methods, Fenric studied each face in turn. The human general showed no fear, only grim determination. The Valorian commander was clearly uncomfortable, but committed to the course of action. Ambassador Chen maintained his quiet dignity, but it was Lyra who held his attention. "Tell me," he said to her, "what do you believe?" Lyra was quiet for a long moment, her predator's instincts evaluating not just his words but his scent, his posture, his intent. "I believe," she said finally, "that we were born to be hunters, that our people fell not because they were weak, but because they faced an enemy who fought without honor. The Devourers are the same. They fight without honor, without purpose, beyond consumption." She paused, her claws extending slightly. "I also believe that 11 centuries of imprisonment have made us something new. We are no longer just the warriors we were. We are something harder, something more focused. Our rage has been refined into purpose." Fenric nodded slowly. She understood. The others saw this as a choice between freedom and duty, but Lyra recognized the truth. This was what they had always been, just pointed at a more worthy target. "The undecided one?" he asked. "Who is it?" "Grimjaw of the Southern Wastes," Lyra replied. "The young one who was barely past his first hunt when we were taken." Fenric remembered. Grimjaw had been barely more than a cub, all eagerness and untested courage. The thought that the youngster would wait for his decision brought a strange warmth to Fenric's chest. "What equipment would we have?" he asked General Martinez. The general activated a holographic display that made Chen's simple projector look primitive. Detailed schematics filled the air, showing weapons and armor that combined the best of human technology, with designs clearly adapted for lupine physiology. Adaptive combat suits with integrated cloaking systems, Martinez explained. Weapons designed for your natural fighting style but enhanced with plasma technology. Personal shields, advanced sensors and communication equipment that can function across galactic distances. Fenric studied the designs with approval. The humans had clearly put significant thought and resources into this project. Transportation? Modified stealth frigates, single-pilot craft with extended range and adaptive camouflage. They're designed to get you deep into Devourer space undetected and keep you supplied for extended operations. And our mission parameters? Chen stepped forward again. Complete operational autonomy. You identify targets, plan attacks, execute missions as you see fit. The only requirement is regular communication to coordinate with fleet movements and share intelligence. Fenric looked at Lyra again. The pack structure? Those who have chosen to fight recognize you as Alpha, she said simply. As it should be. You were the strongest warrior before our imprisonment, and isolation has only sharpened your edge. The weight of leadership settled on Fenric's shoulders like familiar armor. 13 of his people, looking to him for guidance in a war against an enemy that had already proven itself capable of destroying civilizations. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like coming home. I have conditions, he said. General Martinez nodded. Name them. First, our homeworld is restored exactly as it was, not as humans think it should be. If we survive this war, we return to the life we knew. Agreed. Second, any offspring born to our people during this campaign are considered full citizens with all rights and protections, regardless of where they are born. Chen smiled slightly. Agreed. Third, we maintain our own chain of command. We coordinate with your forces, but we do not take orders from them. That was always the plan, Martinez confirmed. Fenric was quiet for a long moment, feeling the weight of the decision not just for himself but for his entire species. Then he looked directly at Ambassador Chen. Your grandmother, he said. What was her name? Captain Sarah Chen, the ambassador replied. She was a communications specialist with the Pacification Force. I remember her, Fenric said quietly. She was one of the few who treated us as people rather than animals. She tried to convince her superiors that we could be reasoned with. Chen's eyes widened slightly. You met her? During the final negotiations before the surrender. She was the only human who looked at us with regret rather than fear. Fenric moved closer to the energy barrier. Tell me, Ambassador, is this offer truly about the Devourer threat, or is it about making amends for your people's mistakes? Chen considered the question carefully. Both, he said honestly. The threat is real and we do need your help. But you're right, there's also a debt that needs to be paid. What was done to your people was wrong, and if this is the only way to balance the scales, then so be it. Fenric nodded appreciatively. Honesty was something he could work with. Very well, he said. I accept your offer. But understand this, once we begin hunting, we hunt to kill. The Devourers will learn why humans once feared to face us in battle. As the energy barrier began to power down for the first time in 11 centuries, Fenric felt something he hadn't experienced since his capture. Anticipation. Not just for freedom, but for the hunt to come. The galaxy was about to remember why apex predators were called apex for a reason. The energy barrier dissolved with a sound like distant thunder, and for the first time in 1100 years, nothing stood between Fenric and freedom. He stepped forward slowly, savoring the sensation of crossing the threshold that had contained him for so long. The air outside his cell tasted different, less recycled, less confined. Ambassador Chen gestured toward the corridor. Your ship is waiting in Docking Bay 7. The others are already aboard. As they walked through the station's corridors, Fenric noticed how the other crew members reacted to his presence. Some froze in terror, others scrambled to get out of his path, and a few simply stared in fascination. He was a legend to them, the monster in the depths that even their supposedly fearless commanders avoided. They're afraid of you, General Martinez observed as they passed a group of Valorian technicians who pressed themselves against the wall. Good, Fenric replied. Fear is honest. It means they understand what I am. Commander Zhexai's scales rippled with discomfort. Perhaps in time that fear can be replaced with respect. Fenric turned his burning gaze on the Valorian commander. I do not need their respect, Commander. I need them to stay out of my way when I hunt. The docking bay doors opened to reveal a ship unlike anything Fenric had seen before. The Wolf's Bane was sleek and predatory, its hull designed with curves and angles that suggested speed and stealth. But it was large enough to house his entire pack, with weapon systems that could challenge much larger vessels. As they boarded, Fenric caught familiar scents that made his heart race. His people, his pack, they were here, alive, real. The transport bay opened into a central common area where 13 figures waited. Each one a piece of his past he'd thought lost forever. Lyra stepped forward first, followed by a massive male with dark fur and scars across his muzzle. "Fenric," the scarred wolf rumbled. "It has been too long." "Garruk," Fenric replied, clasping the other male's massive hand. "I thought you were dead. The report said you fell during the last battle at Thornspire Ridge." "I should have," Garruk admitted. "But humans are thorough in their capturing as well as their killing. I've spent these centuries dreaming of revenge." One by one the others approached. Fenric recognized each face, each scent, each voice. These weren't just his people, they were his family. Pack bonds transcended blood, and seeing them alive awakened instincts he'd forced into dormancy during his imprisonment. The youngest of the group stepped forward last. Grimjaw had grown during his imprisonment, no longer the eager cub but a lean, dangerous adult with pale silver fur and eyes that held the focused intensity of a born hunter. "Alpha," he said simply, inclining his head in respect. "You waited for my decision," Fenric observed. "The pack follows the Alpha," Grimjaw replied. "Always." General Martinez watched the reunion with interest. "Your people seem different than the report suggested." "How so?" Lyra asked, her tone neutral but with an edge that suggested the general should choose her words carefully. "The reports described savage pack animals driven by instinct. What I see are people with complex social structures and clear hierarchies." Fenric snorted. "Your people saw what they expected to see. Warriors defending their territory became savage pack animals. Strategic thinking became animal cunning. The fact that we chose to fight rather than submit became proof of our primitive nature." Ambassador Chen gestured toward a briefing area equipped with holographic displays and tactical planning equipment. "Perhaps we should discuss the specifics of your mission." As the pack gathered around the planning table, Fenric felt the familiar comfort of pack dynamics reasserting themselves. Lyra positioned herself at his right side, his second in command. Garruk took the left, ready to enforce any decisions. The others arranged themselves according to subtle hierarchies that had been established over centuries of shared imprisonment experiences. The holographic display activated, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas under Devourer control. Yellow zones showed contested space, and green zones represented the remaining free territories. The red dominated nearly a third of the display. "The Devourer fleet is currently concentrated here," Martinez explained, highlighting a cluster of systems near the galactic rim. "They've established what appears to be a staging area, harvesting resources and building new ships." Fenric studied the tactical situation with professional interest. Their expansion pattern suggests they're preparing for a major offensive push toward the core worlds. "Our intelligence agrees," Chen confirmed. "We estimate they'll begin their advance within 6 months. Once they start, our outer defense lines won't hold them for more than a few weeks." Lyra leaned forward, her claws tracing patterns on the display. "What about their supply lines? Even an enemy like this must have logistical requirements." "That's where you come in," Martinez said. "Traditional fleets can't penetrate their territory undetected. But small, fast ships operating independently might be able to disrupt their operations from within." Garruk growled low in his throat. "You want us to be saboteurs." "I want you to be hunters," Fenric corrected. "The Devourers think like a swarm. Overwhelming force, no subtlety, no individual initiative. They won't expect predators operating in their territory." The display shifted to show detailed scans of Devourer ships and installations. "These are their mining operations," Martinez explained. "They strip entire asteroids for raw materials. These are their construction yards where they build new ships, and these are their biological processing centers, where they convert organic matter into usable resources." Fenric's lips pulled back in a snarl as he studied the processing centers. The scale of death they represented was staggering. Billions of sentient beings reduced to raw materials for an endless war machine. "We start with the mining operations," he decided. "Disrupt their resource gathering, and we slow their ship production. That buys the fleet time to prepare better defenses. The mining operations are heavily defended, Martinez warned. Automated weapon platforms, patrol ships, sensor networks. Good, Grimjaw said, his young voice carrying deadly intent. It's been too long since we've had a proper hunt. Chen activated another display showing the ship's armory and equipment bay. You'll have access to our most advanced stealth technology and weapons. The suits are designed to enhance your natural abilities while providing protection against devourer weapons. Fenric examined the equipment specifications with approval. The humans had clearly put considerable thought into adapting their technology for lupine physiology. The combat suits would enhance their natural speed and strength, while providing stealth capabilities and environmental protection. Communication protocols? Lyra asked. You'll report to me directly, Chen explained. Intelligence updates, target assessments, resource needs. But operational decisions are entirely yours. Timeline for deployment? Fenric asked. Your ship is fully equipped and ready for immediate departure, Martinez replied. The longer we wait, the stronger their positions become. Fenric looked around at his pack, reading the subtle body language and scent cues that spoke of their readiness. These weren't the same wolves who had been captured over a millennium ago. Imprisonment had refined them, focused their rage into something sharp and purposeful. We leave immediately, he decided. Garrick, take 3 others and familiarize yourselves with the ship's systems. Lyra, coordinate with the weapons specialist to ensure our equipment is properly calibrated. Grimjaw, work with the navigation systems to plot our initial approach routes. As his people dispersed to their tasks, Fenric remained at the planning table with the human officials. There's something you're not telling me, he said. Chen's expression grew troubled. What makes you say that? Because this mission is too convenient. You need hunters, and you happen to have imprisoned the galaxy's most effective predators for 11 centuries? That's not coincidence, Ambassador. That's preparation. General Martinez exchanged a glance with Chen before responding. You're right. This operation has been in planning for over 50 years. From the moment we first encountered the Devourers, there were those who believed conventional warfare wouldn't be enough. So you kept us in reserve, Fenric concluded. Insurance against a threat you knew would eventually come. Yes, Chen admitted. And I won't apologize for that, even though it means your people suffered longer than necessary. Sometimes the greatest good requires difficult choices. Fenric considered this revelation. Part of him wanted to be angry at the manipulation, but a larger part recognized the strategic necessity. At least you're honest about it now. Will this change your decision? Chen asked. Fenric looked out through the ship's viewports at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, an enemy was preparing to consume everything his people had ever known or might one day know. His pack was ready. His ship was ready. And for the first time in 11 centuries, he had a purpose worthy of his abilities. No, he said. It just makes the hunt more interesting. 3 weeks into Devourer space, the Wolf's Bane drifted silently through the asteroid field surrounding the mining complex designated Target Alpha. The ship's stealth systems rendered it nearly invisible to sensors, but Fenric wasn't taking chances. They had spent days studying patrol patterns, sensor sweeps, and shift changes before making their approach. The mining operation was massive. Dozens of automated extractors stripping asteroids down to their core materials while processor ships converted the raw ore into construction materials. Devourer vessels moved through the complex in precise formations, their insectoid hulls gleaming under the light of the distant star. 18 patrol craft, Lyra reported from the sensor station. Standard configuration, heavy armor, moderate weapons, limited maneuverability in the asteroid field. Processing ships? Fenric asked. 6 large ones, 12 smaller support vessels. The large ones appear to be the primary conversion facilities. Garrick studied the tactical display with a predator's focus. The patrol pattern has a gap every 47 minutes when the outer perimeter shifts. We could get a strike team to the primary processors during that window. Fenric nodded, but his attention was focused on something else. Grimjaw, what do you see on the biological scanners? The younger wolf's expression darkened as he read the data. Massive organic signatures in the processing ships. Alpha. They're not just converting minerals, they're processing biological matter from previously consumed worlds. The revelation sent a wave of rage through the pack that was almost tangible. These weren't just military targets. They were sites of ongoing genocide. Places where billions of murdered beings were being converted into resources for further conquest. Change of plans, Fenric announced. We don't just disrupt the operation, we obliterate it. Lyra turned from her station. Alpha, our orders were to conduct hit-and-run attacks to slow their production. A full assault will bring massive retaliation. Let them retaliate, Fenric growled. Some things are worth the risk. The pack began final preparations with the efficiency of predators who had hunted together for centuries. Combat suits were donned and checked. Weapons were calibrated and explosive charges were distributed. Each wolf carried enough firepower to level a small building, but their greatest weapons remained their natural abilities enhanced by human technology. Fenric's suit interface flickered to life as he sealed his helmet. The heads-up display showed tactical data, environmental readings, and communication channels. But most importantly, it tracked the locations and status of every pack member. They would hunt as one. Remember, he addressed his team as they gathered in the transport bay. We are not soldiers. We are not saboteurs. We are hunters, and today we hunt monsters. The assault began with surgical precision. The Wolf's Bane deployed stealth pods during the patrol gap, inserting the wolves directly into the heart of the mining complex. Their pods scattered in different directions, each wolf heading for predetermined targets. Fenric and Grimjaw took the largest processing ship. As they breached the hull through a maintenance airlock, the stench hit them immediately. Death and decay on an industrial scale. The ship's interior was a nightmare of biological processing equipment. Massive chambers where organic matter was broken down and reformed. By the hunt, Grimjaw whispered, his young voice filled with horror. How many? Fenric's enhanced senses picked up trace elements that told the story. Hundreds of species. Millions of individuals. His claws extended unconsciously, all of them dead. They moved through the ship like shadows, placing charges at critical points while avoiding the mechanical servants that tended the processing equipment. The Devourers themselves seemed to be elsewhere, probably overseeing operations from command ships. Through the communication network, Fenric tracked his pack's progress. Lyra and 2 others had taken the main ore processing facility. Garrick led a team against the fuel depot. Each team reported successful infiltration and charge placement. Then the first patrol ship exploded. The Devourer response was immediate and overwhelming. Alarm signals flooded the complex as patrol craft converged on the blast zone. Automated defenses came online, filling space with weapons fire that could vaporize smaller ships. All teams accelerate the timeline, Fenric ordered over the comm. We have minutes before they lock down the entire complex. The wolves adapted with fluid grace, their enhanced speed and agility allowing them to navigate the increasingly dangerous environment. Fenric watched through helmet cam feeds as Lyra's team fought their way through mechanical defenders, her claws tearing through combat drones with savage efficiency. Garrick's team had encountered Devourers directly, the first live contact any of them had with the enemy. The creatures were even more terrifying in person than the intelligence reports had suggested. 8 feet tall, covered in chitinous armor, with mandibles that could snap a human in half, but they had never faced opponents like the wolves. They're fast, Garrick reported over the comm, his voice strained with effort. But they're not pack hunters. They don't coordinate like we do. Fenric completed his final charge placement and began moving toward the extraction point. Through the ship's viewports, he could see the mining complex erupting in chaos as his pack's sabotage took effect. Extraction platforms collapsed, ore processors exploded in chains of secondary detonations, and fuel depots sent pillars of flame into the void. But the real prize was yet to come. All teams, extraction in 30 seconds, Fenric announced. Biological processing ships are the priority targets. The synchronized detonation lit up the asteroid field like a newborn star. The 6 large processing ships, the industrial-scale murder factories, vanished in nuclear fire. The 12 support vessels followed moments later. Mining equipment worth billions of credits became expanding clouds of superheated gas. The Wolf's Bane materialized from stealth as the wolves' escape pods reached it, scooping them up with precise timing while dodging return fire from surviving Devourer vessels. The ship's enhanced engines engaged, carrying them away from the devastation at speeds that pushed the limits of their technology. As they cleared the immediate danger zone, Fenric allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had done more than disrupt a mining operation, they had sent a message. The Devourers were not invincible. They could be hunted. Casualty report, he called. Minor injuries only, Lyra replied. Gravik took some shrapnel, but the suit contained it. He'll be operational within hours. Damage assessment? Fenric asked. Grimjaw pulled up the sensor data. Total destruction of biological processing capability. Ore processing reduced by approximately 70%. Fuel production eliminated. Conservative estimate. We've set back their production schedule by at least 6 months. But the real victory was in the intelligence they had gathered. Every sensor reading, every observation, every moment of combat had been recorded and analyzed. They now knew how Devourers fought, how they reacted to threats, how their technology functioned under stress. Signal Ambassador Chen, Fenric ordered. Tell him the first hunt was successful. Send him all combat data and tactical observations. As the Wolf's Bane jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward their next target, Fenric felt something he hadn't experienced in over a millennium. The satisfaction of a successful hunt. But more than that, he felt hope. His people were no longer prisoners. They were predators once again, and they had found worthy prey. Behind them, the wreckage of the mining complex drifted through space, a monument to the price of underestimating Earth's children and their allies. The Devourers had learned their first lesson about hunting wolves. They would learn many more before this war was over. In the depths of Devourer command ships throughout the sector, reports were being compiled and transmitted. The mining complex had been destroyed by unknown attackers using tactics unlike anything in their databases. The attackers had fought with coordination, intelligence, and ruthless efficiency. For the first time since beginning their galactic consumption, the Devourers faced an enemy that hunted them back. The war had truly begun. 6 months after the first successful hunt, the Wolf's Bane hung in the shadow of a dead world, its sensors carefully scanning the massive Devourer fleet assembling in orbit. The planet below had once been home to 12 billion Cathari, a peaceful species known for their artistic achievements and philosophical wisdom. Now it was a barren rock, stripped of every trace of organic matter. Fenric stood in the ship's observation deck studying the enemy formation through enhanced optics. In half a year, his pack had struck 17 targets across Devourer space, each assault more daring than the last. They had destroyed supply convoys, sabotaged construction facilities, and eliminated forward scouting elements, but this was different. 147 capital ships, Lyra reported from the tactical station, plus support vessels and defensive platforms. It's the largest Devourer fleet ever assembled. Garruk moved to stand beside Fenric. And they're all here because of us. It was true. Intelligence intercepted from their previous raids had revealed the fleet's purpose. A massive hunting expedition designed specifically to track down and eliminate the wolves. The Devourers had finally recognized the threat the pack represented and were responding with overwhelming force. They're learning, Grimjaw observed. Their patrol patterns have adapted to counter our previous tactics. Their ship formations account for the stealth capabilities we demonstrated. Fenric nodded grimly. The enemy was evolving, becoming more dangerous with each encounter. But evolution was a game his people had been playing for millions of years, and they had advantages the Devourers couldn't fully comprehend. Signal from command, announced Kira, the pack's communications specialist. Ambassador Chen wants a real-time briefing. The holographic communicator activated, showing Chen's face along with General Martinez and several other officials Fenric didn't recognize. Their expressions were tense, worried. Fenric, Chen began, our long-range sensors confirm what you're seeing. The Devourers have assembled their largest fleet to hunt your pack. We're ordering you to withdraw to friendly space immediately. No, Fenric replied simply. This isn't a request, General Martinez interjected. That fleet could destroy our entire outer defense line. If they catch you, your people die for nothing. Fenric's eyes narrowed. You still don't understand what we are, General. We're not soldiers following orders. We're hunters following prey. And right now we're looking at the largest concentration of prey in the galaxy. Chen leaned forward. Fenric, be reasonable. 14 wolves against nearly 200 ships? It's suicide. Wolves don't hunt alone, Lyra said, moving into view of the communicator. We hunt in packs. And sometimes the largest prey requires the largest pack. One of the unnamed officials spoke up. What are you suggesting? Fenric smiled, showing teeth that could tear through steel. We're suggesting that your conventional thinking is why you've been losing this war. You see that fleet as an overwhelming force. We see it as a target-rich environment. Explain, Chen demanded. Fenric activated his own tactical display, showing the enemy fleet formation. Look at their arrangement. They're configured for pursuit and engagement. All their firepower pointed outward, designed to catch and destroy small, fast targets like us. Garrick took over the explanation. But they're not configured for defense against internal threats. Their command structure assumes threats come from outside their formation. You want to infiltrate the fleet, Martinez realized. Get inside their defensive perimeter. More than that, Grimjaw added. We want to use their own fleet against them. Fenric began outlining the plan, his voice carrying the confidence of a predator who had studied his prey extensively. The Devourers operate through hierarchical control systems. Each ship receives orders from vessels higher in the command structure. If we can compromise the right targets, we can turn their coordination against them. The plan was audacious beyond anything they had attempted before. Using the Wolf's Bane's enhanced stealth capabilities, they would insert themselves directly into the enemy fleet. Small teams would infiltrate key command vessels and introduce computer viruses designed by human intelligence specialists. The viruses wouldn't destroy the ships outright. Instead, they would corrupt the command and control systems, causing the Devourers to attack their own vessels. The psychological impact alone would be devastating, Chen admitted. If we can make them afraid of their own fleet, they'll become reactive instead of proactive, Fenric agreed. Cautious instead of aggressive, and cautious prey is easier to hunt. The briefing continued for another hour, with technical specialists providing details about the computer viruses and infiltration equipment. The plan required perfect timing, flawless execution, and more than a little luck. It was exactly the kind of operation that conventional military thinking would never approve, which was why it might work. As the communication ended, Fenric gathered his pack in the ship's common area. These wolves had followed him through 6 months of increasingly dangerous missions, trusting his judgment even when it led them into seemingly impossible situations. This is different from anything we've done before, he told them. We'll be operating inside their fleet, surrounded by enemies with no possibility of extraction if things go wrong. Kira raised her hand. Alpha, what are our chances of survival? Fenric considered the question seriously. Honestly? Less than 30%. This fleet was designed specifically to kill us. They know our capabilities, our tactics, our equipment. But, Lyra prompted, but they still think like a swarm. They expect us to run, to hide, to avoid confrontation. They don't expect us to hunt them in the heart of their own fleet. The pack exchanged glances, silent communication passing between them. Finally, Garrick spoke for all of them. When do we begin? The insertion took 12 hours of careful maneuvering, using asteroid debris and sensor shadows to approach the enemy fleet undetected. The Wolf's Bane positioned itself in the shadow of a massive Devourer battleship, so close that Fenric could see the alien symbols etched into its hull. The infiltration began at what humans would call midnight, ship's time. 5 two-wolf teams deployed simultaneously, each targeting a different command vessel. They moved through space using personal stealth systems and micro-thrusters, invisible ghosts slipping between ships that could level planets. Fenric and Grimjaw took the fleet flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed everything around it. As they breached the hull through a maintenance port, Fenric felt the familiar thrill of the hunt. This was what he had been born to do, to move through enemy territory, to strike at the heart of their power, to turn their strength against them. The ship's interior was a maze of corridors designed for creatures twice the size of humans. The walls were covered in organic growths that seemed to pulse with their own life, and the air carried scents that spoke of death and decay. But underneath it all, Fenric could smell something else. Fear. The Devourers knew they were being hunted. Moving through the ship like shadows, Fenric and Grimjaw placed virus-infected data cores at critical system junctions. The human computer specialists had outdone themselves. The viruses were designed to remain dormant until activated by a specific signal, then spread through the fleet's communication network like wildfire. As they worked, Fenric's enhanced hearing picked up alien voices discussing search patterns and security protocols. The Devourers were actively looking for infiltrators, but their searches focused on external threats. They couldn't conceive of enemies already inside their most secure vessels. The other teams reported similar success. Lyra and Kira had penetrated the fleet's primary communications hub. Garrock and his partner had reached the main tactical coordination center. Each team was in position to unleash their electronic plague upon the enemy. "All teams report ready," Lyra whispered over the comm. Fenric checked his chronometer. In 30 minutes, the Devourer fleet would begin its coordinated jump to the next target system. They would arrive expecting to find and destroy the wolves. Instead, they would find chaos. "Execute," Fenric ordered. Across the fleet, dormant viruses awakened and began their work. Command systems crashed and rebooted with corrupted data. Navigation computers began reporting false positions. Weapon systems started targeting their own escort vessels. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The first friendly fire incident occurred when a Devourer cruiser's weapon systems identified a nearby destroyer as a hostile target. The destroyer's death was spectacular, its reactor core breaching in a flash of nuclear fire that illuminated the entire fleet. Panic spread through the Devourer ranks as ship after ship began experiencing system failures. Some vessels fired on anything that moved. Others shut down completely, their crews unable to distinguish between corrupted data and reality. In the midst of the chaos, 14 wolves slipped away into the void, leaving behind an enemy fleet that was destroying itself with mechanical precision. The hunt had taken a new turn. The predators had become the virus, and their prey was consuming itself from within. 1 year after the first hunt began, Fenric stood on the bridge of the newly christened Apex, a ship built specifically for his pack using technology reverse-engineered from captured Devourer vessels. Around him, his pack had grown, not just in numbers but in capability. Word of their success had reached other imprisoned wolves across the galaxy, and 17 had become 53. The tactical display showed a map that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Red zones marking Devourer control had shrunk by nearly 20%. Yellow contested areas had expanded as Galactic Council forces pushed back with renewed confidence. Most remarkably, several systems showed green again, worlds that had been liberated from Devourer occupation. Intelligence report from Ambassador Chen, Kira announced from the communications station. The Galactic Council has officially designated the Devourer advance as contained for the first time since the war began. Lyra moved to stand beside Fenric, her silver fur now bearing scars from dozens of engagements. "The virus attacks worked better than even we hoped. Their fleet coordination has never fully recovered." Garrock looked up from his tactical analysis. "They've adapted their systems, but the psychological damage remains. Their commanders are paranoid about electronic warfare, sometimes spending hours verifying simple orders. The transformation in the war's trajectory had been remarkable. The Devourers, once an unstoppable swarm consuming everything in their path, had become cautious and reactive. They still possessed overwhelming numerical superiority, but they had lost their greatest advantage, the certainty that they were the apex predators in the galaxy." Fenric studied the display showing their current target, a massive Devourer installation built around a captured space station. Intelligence suggested it was their primary research facility, where they studied captured technologies and developed new weapons. More importantly, it was where they were attempting to create countermeasures against wolf tactics. "Grimjaw," Fenric called to his former protege, who had grown into one of the pack's most skilled hunters. "What do the reconnaissance reports tell us?" Grimjaw activated his workstation, displaying detailed scans of the facility. "Heavy defenses as expected. But there's something unusual. They're using organic components in their security systems. Living sensors, biological processors, even what appears to be captured specimens from various species." The implications sent a chill through the pack. The Devourers were not just studying technology. They were studying the beings they had conquered, learning how to better hunt and capture different species. "There's more," Grimjaw continued. "Long-range sensors detect significant biological signatures in the lower levels. Large numbers of living beings, species we don't recognize." Fenric's claws extended unconsciously. "Prisoners, or worse," Lyra added grimly. "Experimental subjects." The mission parameters suddenly became clear. This wasn't just about disrupting Devourer research. It was about rescue. About saving whatever beings the Devourers had captured for their experiments. "All teams prepare for insertion," Fenric ordered. "But this time we're not just hunting. We're liberating." The assault on the research facility was the most complex operation the wolves had ever attempted. Instead of their usual small teams, Fenric deployed the entire pack in coordinated waves. The first wave disabled external defenses and sensors. The second wave breached the facility's outer hull. The third wave penetrated to the research levels, while the fourth secured extraction routes. As Fenric led his team through the facility's corridors, he was struck by how different this place felt from previous Devourer installations. The organic components Grimjaw had detected weren't just technology. They were integrated into the very structure of the facility. Walls pulsed with alien lifeforms. Ceiling panels moved with their own primitive intelligence. The entire station felt alive in a way that was deeply unsettling. But it was the research laboratories that truly horrified him. The first lab they encountered contained dozens of containment chambers, each holding a different species. Some Fenric recognized from intelligence reports, beings from worlds the Devourers had recently conquered. Others were completely unknown, possibly from galaxies beyond their own. But it was the fourth lab that stopped Fenric cold. In a specialized containment unit that reeked of human technology, a single figure lay suspended in some kind of stasis field. The being was humanoid but clearly not human. Taller, broader, with features that suggested both intelligence and predatory capability. Most shocking of all, the creature bore physical similarities to his own people. Alpha. Lyra's voice came over the comm, tight with controlled emotion. You need to see Laboratory 7. Fenric left Grimjaw to handle the prisoner extractions and made his way to Lyra's location. What he found there challenged everything he thought he knew about his people's place in the galaxy. Laboratory 7 contained dozens of containment units, and everyone held a wolf-like being. Some were clearly from his own homeworld. He could recognize the pack markings and territorial scarification. But others were different, larger, smaller, with different colorations and facial structures, all unmistakably lupine but representing varieties of his species he had never seen before. How many worlds? He whispered. At least 12 different variants, Lyra reported. The Devourers have been collecting our people from across multiple galaxies. They've been studying us, Alpha, learning everything about how we hunt, how we fight, how we think. The revelation hit Fenric like a physical blow. His people weren't unique to their homeworld. They were part of a larger family of species spread across the cosmos, and the Devourers had been systematically hunting and capturing them for study. But there was more. In the center of the laboratory, a massive holographic display showed what appeared to be a genetic map. As Fenric studied it, the implications became clear. The Devourers weren't just studying wolf species. They were trying to create their own versions. Hybrid creatures that combined Devourer physiology with lupine hunting instincts. They're trying to become us, Garrick observed, his voice filled with disgust. They want our abilities, our instincts, our pack coordination. No, Fenric corrected, understanding flooding through him. They want to be better than us. They're trying to create the perfect predator. The extraction took 6 hours and required every wolf in the pack. 1,700 prisoners of a dozen species, including 43 wolves from worlds Fenric had never heard of. As the rescued beings were brought aboard the Apex, Fenric found himself face to face with hunters who were both familiar and alien. The largest of the rescued wolves introduced himself as Magna Alpha Thorn of the Crimson Reaches, a title that suggested pack structures far more complex than anything from Fenric's homeworld. Others spoke of great hunts across galactic clusters, of wars against machine races that made the Devourers look primitive. Your war, Thorn told Fenric as they stood in the Apex's expanded common area, is just one front in a much larger conflict. The Devourers have been consuming realities for longer than your species has existed. How long? Fenric asked. Millions of years, possibly longer. They move between galaxies, between dimensions, consuming everything in their path. Your people are the first to successfully resist them in recorded history. The knowledge was overwhelming. Fenric had thought they were fighting for their galaxy, their way of life. In reality, they were fighting for the survival of consciousness itself across multiple realities, but as he looked around at his expanded pack, 53, wolves that had become nearly 100 with the rescued variants, Fenric felt, something he hadn't experienced since his imprisonment began. True hope, then. We teach them what it means to hunt wolves, he declared. All of us together. The rescued wolves responded with a howl that echoed through the ship's corridors, a sound of challenge and unity that spoke of hunts to come. The devourers had made a critical error in their calculations. They had assumed that studying wolves would help them defeat wolves. Instead, they had just provided their enemies with the largest pack in galactic history. Ambassador Chen's voice crackled over the communication system. Fenric, we're receiving reports of devourer forces retreating from 17 systems simultaneously. They're running. Fenric smiled, showing teeth that had been sharpened by 1,000 years of imprisonment and refined by a year of successful hunts. Good. Now they know what it feels like to be prey. Outside the Apex's viewports, the stars awaited. Somewhere among them, the devourers were regrouping, adapting, preparing for the next phase of their ancient war of consumption. But they would no longer hunt alone. They had awakened something they could never truly understand or replicate. The loyalty of the pack, the wisdom of the Alpha, and the relentless determination of those who refused to be consumed. The hunt continued, but now the predators had become the hunted, and wolves, as any student of nature could attest, always traveled in packs.